All right, welcome back to another video. You know who it is. It's your boy, Coach Byrd, and here's part three of your multiplying and dividing rational numbers. In the first two videos, we talked about multiplying and dividing fraction integers. In this particular video, we're going to talk about multiplying decimal integers, and then in the next one, we're going to talk about dividing decimal integers. So let's jump right into this. Remember, if you know the rules for multiplying, then multiplying integers is not going to be much different. Remember, if you got a positive times a positive, you're going to end up with a positive. A negative times a negative, you're going to end up with a positive. A positive times a negative, you're going to end up with a negative. And then a negative times a positive, you're going to end up with a negative. Remember, same sign, you're going to end up with a positive, and different signs, you're going to end up with a negative. So let's look at the rules and give you a reminder of how to multiply decimals. Remember, number one, count how many numbers are behind your decimals in your problem. Number two, don't worry about the decimals. Multiply them as if they were whole numbers. And then step four, add the decimals back in. So let's take a look at number one. And you really don't have to pay attention to the integer until the end, but if you want to go ahead and identify it first, you may do that. So I'm going to just put an equal sign here, and I got a negative times a positive, so I know my answer is going to be negative. All right, and I'm going to work my workout further to the right. But I know I have a 2/10 times 9/10, and remember, the step is count how many numbers are behind the decimals in your problem. In the first one, I got one number after my decimal, and in the second number, I have one number. And so 1 plus 1 is 2. So in my answer, there should be two numbers after my decimal. So when I look at this, now what I have is, remember, forget the decimals and multiply. The zero in the front doesn't really matter in this particular case. So I can just do 2 times 9, and that's going to give me 18. And that should be, remember, there should be two numbers after my decimal. So I'm going to start here, 1, 2. Two numbers after my decimal, and that number should be 1800s. All right, and we already discovered that it should be negative. Let's look at number two. Number two, once again, let's figure out whether it's going to be a positive or a negative. Negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. I don't have to write the positive sign, but for visual purposes, I am going to write it. So now I have, remember, forget the decimals and multiply. 12 times 4. And that becomes 8, 4. And in my problem, I had one number after my decimal, two numbers after my decimal. So there should be two numbers after my decimal, and this should be a positive 4800s. All right. And now let's look at example number 3. Example number 3, I have a negative times a positive. So that's going to be a negative for my answer. All right. And now, remember, remove the decimals and multiply. That's 34 times 13. That's 12, 9, 10, 0, 4, 3. I'm left with 442. 442. All right. And when I come back to my problem, there's one number, two numbers after my decimal. So that decimal point is going to go right there to leave two numbers after my decimal. And that should be a negative 442 hundredths. All right. And that's how you multiply decimals. If you remember your rules and your steps, then multiplying whole numbers and multiplying decimals is not that much different. And I hope this video helps, and I'll see you in the next one.